Lord, grant me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith.
Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light.
And where there is sadness, joy.
O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console.
To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love.
For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned.
And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
problems are unsolvable. But poverty isn't inevitable. In America, we value individual responsibility, and that's a good thing, of course. But this focus on the individual often means we neglect our collective responsibility to invest in poor children, poor youth, and working poor families. Long-term neglect creates a really tough, challenging situation like we see in Appalachia, or the rural South, or in the 9th Ward in New Orleans. There's no magic bullet to turn these fences around, but we have learned a lot about what works. We know the investments in kids' early education, youth engagement, stability of parents' work, and income make a difference. One way to think about it is that we have a responsibility to the poor children of the world, and that it is possible to invest in them with real commitment so they have a future. It is possible.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rich.
On a very hot and very humid Saturday morning this past July, I found myself behind the wheel of the school's express van. Sitting behind me were two members of the class of 2000, Laura Tansley and Caitlin Lampman. And behind them were 5 current Westover students, the 5 who just happen to be sitting behind me today. That morning, we were setting off on an 8-day trip that would take us to Jackson County, Kentucky, for a week of community service. We were following the same route that had been taken a dozen times before, between the mid-1980s and the summer of 2002, by more than 100 Westover students and a number of Westover faculty chaperones. Our ultimate destination was the small town of Annville, in the beautiful hills of Appalachia. As with the earlier Kentucky trips, our project would be to work with several dozen elementary school children from throughout Jackson County. Over the course of the week that we were there, these 5 students and the amazing Maura and Caitlin spent hours each day with groups of children who were part of a summer enrichment and remedial program run by the county's school system. Before our students share their own stories about their week in Jackson County, I want to just give you some basic information about the region we visited. Jackson County is one of the poorest counties in Kentucky. Its unemployment rate of 14% is the highest in the state. It has been almost that high for the past decade, since the county's largest employer, a factory with 800 people, closed after a fire. Without a strong financial base, the county has been staggering during the current recession. The high school's class there, of 2013, graduated 140 students, but 80 of their classmates, more than a third of the class, had dropped out over the previous 4 years. Because of limited resources, the high school there only offers 1 AP course. Westover, by contrast, offers more than 20. Only 40 of this year's graduates from the high school were planning to attend college this fall. As was noted in today's reading, there is no magic bullet to turn these places around, but we have learned a lot about what works. The school remedial program that our group took part in last summer may help to someday make a difference. The stories you are about to hear will offer you just a glimpse of what our amazing week was like down there, and about some of the children we got to know while we were there. And with that, you're up.
This past summer, I had the privilege of driving in a van for a collective 30 hours to Jackson County, Kentucky, with the people you see in front of you, people whom I count myself lucky to have gotten to know. Our trip to Kentucky proved to be one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. My decision to go on this trip was a bit impromptu. I received Chris's email in the spring about the opportunity to help in July at this summer school/camp in Kentucky, and it caught my interest. I'd never been to Kentucky before, and I love to work with kids, so the trip seemed fitting. What I didn't and couldn't possibly realize was how greatly this trip would affect me. Prior to this lengthy commute of ours, we were provided a few statistics on Jackson County, some of which include the following. 55% of Jackson County children are eligible for free or reduced price meals. 32% of 4th graders scored below the basic level of reading achievement on the National Assessment of Education Progress. 41% of Jackson County children are ages 3 to 5 are not enrolled in nursery school, preschool, or kindergarten. 2 out of 5 rural children ages 10 to 17 are either overweight or obese. Equipped with these statistics, I was completely unsure of what to expect. My first day at Tyner Elementary School, though, banished any doubts I had had, as I realized these kids were almost exactly like any other 6 to 10-year-olds I had met, inquisitive, energetic, and adorable. I say almost exactly because although there were some similarities, there were also drastic differences. During our first 2 days, we were able to get acquainted with the campers. Of course, this included intense interrogation on their behalf. These questions, though, were disturbingly less innocent than the normal, "What's your favorite color?" or "Do you have a pet?" you typically get from an elementary school student. A popular question amongst the campers was, "Will you get me seconds?" Since most of the kids at the camp were on a free or reduced meal plan, they were only allowed 1 serving of whatever lunch the camp provided. This lunch oftentimes was not remotely nutritious and sometimes even downright unappetizing. I found myself packing extra goldfish and a few packs of fruit snacks in the mornings to share with the kids when they were still hungry after an unsatisfying lunch. I think the question that resonated with me the most, though, was, "Do you sleep on a bed?" A little girl named Danielle asked me this, and I don't think I could ever forget it. She comes from a family of 7, and her twin brothers went to the camp as well, one of whom I was fortunate to form a special bond with. His name was Daniel, and I spent a good majority of my week with him. He told me that there were not enough beds in his house for everyone, so he and his brother had to share one, and Danielle had to sleep on the couch. I asked around about Danielle and his home life because I wanted to know more about his background and family, which seemed to be infamous in the small region of Jackson County. I was told a story of how at a school event, when Daniel and his siblings were misbehaving, their father, as punishment, their father, a strict militaristic man, made all 7 kids line up against the school wall with their arms outstretched and one leg propped up on the wall. They stayed like this for an entire hour. Apparently, this was not an uncommon occurrence when it came to their family discipline. This story really put things into perspective. I had a new appreciation for how Daniel always maintained that beat and seemed to effortlessly be able to mask any signs of this life of his that was so far from what we consider normal. It was humbling to have the opportunity to spend time with these incredible children. If I'm able to, I both plan and look forward to visiting them again this summer. I really hope you consider coming to Jackson County next year too, because I promise you wouldn't regret it.
When I think back to the Kentucky trip, I immediately think of the children who started out as complete strangers, but quickly captured my affection and became my friends. Despite after spending only 5 short days with the kids, saying goodbye afterwards was difficult for all of us to do. Coming to Jackson County, I had not known what to expect. As we already knew, many of the children came from difficult backgrounds. About half of them were eligible for free or reduced price meals, and many children showed academic achievement below the acceptance standard. As we would soon come to find out, some children's parents were heavily influenced by drugs. The children were instead taken care of by their relatives. With this in mind, one might imagine that the children would behave differently from a kid who has not grown up in such a difficult and saddening environment. However, when I met the children of Tyner Elementary, they reminded me of my former classmates and my younger self. From the moment we first met them, many of the kids were eager to play games and opened up to us relatively quickly. Despite their circumstances, the children seemed as enthusiastic and playful as any other kids. The more I interacted with them, playing ninja with the boys, or then the younger girls, eating and laughing at lunch with them, and listening to them ramble like many kids do, the more I wanted to give the children the attention they longed for and deserved. By saying that many of these kids appear to be as energetic and loving as other children are, I do not intend to minimize the troubles they have endured. In fact, their ability to make each day the most fun amazed me. One girl who had a particular influence on me was an 8-year-old girl named Nikki. During the first few days, she was rather quiet and more reserved than many of her classmates. She never went out of her way to talk to me. Because she was so timid, I wasn't entirely sure if she was enjoying spending time with us. However, about halfway through our trip, when I was eating lunch with 3 6-year-old girls, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw Nikki presenting me with a gift, this bracelet, which has an M on it for Nola. I hadn't even realized she knew my name. The thought that even though she was growing up in this impoverished environment, Nikki was still so kind-hearted and sweet greatly affected me. Among my many memories from Kentucky, the shy little smile she gave me with this bracelet remains as clear to me as if it were just yesterday. Looking back on the connections I made with so many of the children in only one short week, my only regret regarding the Kentucky trip is that I could not have spent more time there. For me, that week flew by, leaving me with at least as many, probably more, touching, laughable, and heart-rending moments as the entire rest of my summer had. I am certain that if in the years to come you find yourself on the Kentucky trip, you will not regret a single moment you spend with those children.
So, being a pickup truck enthusiast that I am, I cannot tell you how excited I was when Ruth Dave, our contact in Jackson County, told us that last time the Westover girls were in Kentucky, they went trucking. This means that you drive around in the bed of a pickup truck, preferably at night, and preferably down a pothole-filled dirt road with lots of mud. So after begging Rich and not actually believing he would let us go, he sent us off with Ruthie and her 16-year-old son. And so we crammed 8 of us into a cab of a truck which only had 5 seats and went to their house. We loaded the bed of their Chevrolet with blankets and headed off to what Nick called the dump road. At the start of the road, we climbed into the bed and Ruthie took off blasting Jason Allen. The dump road is exactly what it sounds like. It's a craggy dirt road that leads to the dump. When we got to the end of the road, Nick told us with a straight face, "Okay, get in the truck. This is where all the meth labs are." I'm not sure if he was kidding or not, but there was definitely a known meth problem in Jackson County. Here's a little bit more to give you an idea of what Jackson County is like. The grocery store is Dollar General, and if you want fresh produce, you have to either go to the Shell gas station or the farmer's market. If you want fresh meat, well, I'm pretty sure you have to kill that in your own backyard. Kentucky was a learning experience. We are so used to having all the amenities of health and food and fungal resources here in New England that we don't realize that not all communities are like ours. I would highly recommend going on this trip next summer, and I hope all of you who do have an awesome time.
Connor, a young 9-year-old boy, had a considerable influence on my experience in Kentucky. He was very shy and often kept to himself. When we had several different activities set up for the kids, he was always extremely hesitant to attempt them. During lunch, Connor did not engage in conversation with any of his peers, but instead observed everything that went on around him. The other girls and I noticed these mannerisms and wondered what his home life was like. This all became clear when we hosted a dinner open to all children and their families. Connor, along with his 2 little sisters and parents, were the only family to show up because of a violent storm that had just begun before dinner. When Connor and his family came in, we noticed that his mother and father seemed to be under the influence of drugs. Drugs are a major problem in Jackson County, and the most predominant drug is methamphetamine, what we know as meth. The notion for producing and using this drug has affected the state, causing it to ban Drano, which is used to clean clogged drains and septic tanks, and Sudafed, which is used to relieve pressure, pain, and cold congestion. Because these over-the-counter drugs are essential ingredients in making meth. The repetitive scratching and distinct scars on her arms hinted at the fact that the drug she might have been under the influence of was meth. It was evident that Connor knew that his parents were not acting the way they should have been. To make up for his parents' inadequacy, Connor kept a vigilant watch over his 2 younger sisters. Coming to the realization that Connor has taken on the responsibility of an adult at such a young age was remarkable. It forced me to think about how appreciative I should be to have parents who are extremely involved in my life. It wasn't until after dinner I finally understood why he acted the way he did. I could sympathize with Connor because it certainly is not easy being the oldest sibling in the family. But because he perseveres through the circumstances he is in, he has inspired me to work hard at becoming more involved and present in my 3 younger sisters' lives. I encourage all of you to take every opportunity presented to you because I went into the Kentucky trip not knowing, and it resulted in a life-changing experience. No matter how minuscule or grand an opportunity may be, you will never know how it will affect your life. And affect you in your life until you try it.
There's something very humbling about working with children who've never seen the ocean. First of all, there's the initial shock that yes, in fact, Kentucky is nowhere near the ocean, so of course there's no possible way for these children to see it. And then there's the fact that I couldn't promise that they would ever be able to see it either. However, I knew that the only way to help these kids was to, in whatever way I could, tell them that they were worth it, and that one day they would be able to see the ocean for themselves. I think that each of us can say that after the first day, the kids started to pick favorites, and I was lucky enough to be favored by Peyton, a small, slightly chubby blonde boy with the best smile. Peyton loves to give hugs, fish with his father, and play frisbee. As it was our job to make sure that the children fulfilled their physical requirement, on our second day I found myself outside playing frisbee with Peyton. He was so happy playing, and I can honestly tell you that there is nothing in this world that is more beautiful than a very happy child. However, though he seemed fine, every time I threw the frisbee to him and he missed, his face fell a little, until he even stopped trying to toss the frisbee back to me. First, he asked me for a hug. Hugs are very important. Everyone will give you hugs. And then he looked at me cheerfully and said something to the effect of, "I suck at this, and I'm terrible at everything. Why don't you even try?" I assured him that there was nothing to worry about, and that he would then, and then I proceeded to show him how to toss the frisbee. Over the course of our trip, Peyton and I discussed God. He had asked me if I'd ever been saved. I cautiously told him that I was Catholic, and although we did things differently, I did go to church every week. College, we explained to him all about college and what it was, and he wanted to know if he would ever be able to go, so we showed him that if he worked hard, he would be able to. School, he was afraid of going to middle school, even though he was in the 3rd grade, so we showed him that he had time to prepare. And then he also talked about friends. He was explaining how he was afraid of being bullied because he had watched the movie Bully or something like that. Apparently it's really scary. And we told him there's nothing to worry about, and he would probably be the one that would be beating up the kids anyways. And sports. Football, he said, is bad. And he said, my grandma told me that I can't play because you can get concussions. Overall, I always was positive with him, and I tried to remind him that he was worth the education, and that if he worked hard enough, he would be able to make his dreams come true. Peyton and I developed a special bond that I hope he will remember, because I know I will. And I look forward to spending another few weeks together this summer.
Thank you all ladies for sharing your stories. Our experiences there could not have happened without Maura and Caitlin, the two alumni I mentioned earlier. Maura was part of a group in the class of 2000 who went on the 1989 Kentucky trip. She and several of her classmates had hoped to return there, and they were kind enough to let us invite ourselves along. Here at Westover, Chris Sweeney, Steve Ladd, and Ann Molina made sure it was possible for us to revive the Kentucky program and make the trip a reality. In Kentucky, Ruthie Sizemore worked out all the details for our stay, in addition to taking these guys on a back road and trucking it. The good news is that Ruthie has invited us back again next summer. We will soon begin planning next year's Kentucky trip, and we hope more alumni and more faculty chaperones will join us. In the meantime, please feel free to ask me or any of our 5 veterans for more details about last summer's trip. On a final personal note, I have a confession to make. On that Saturday morning, when we first set out, I wasn't sure if this trip would be a success. You see, most of the earlier trips had been organized and led by my late wife, Eileen. And frankly, I wasn't sure if we could pull this trip off without her. But within 10 minutes of the first morning of our day at that school, I found myself watching these 5 students in action with the kids of Jackson County. And as I watched them, all my doubts and worries just melted away. They, and Maura and Caitlin, were the magic that made the trip an amazing experience for all of us and for the children we worked with. So ladies, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.